Hey everyone, good afternoon. Ryan talking from the Black Room here. Hope everybody's having a good day today. Wanted to jump on here. It's actually pretty good timing because the downtrend in the market just broke here. And I wanted to do a video on the trend day signal that I use for the market. I also use this for individual stocks as well, but it's a really simple signal that I use, and it's pretty accurate. And I just wanted to share that with you guys because in the Black Room, I was on the mic here at 10:30. And we really had because of the larger time frames, the daily, weekly chart, because we gapped under this base. We talked yesterday about the 60-minute chart possibly rolling over here, creating kind of a rounding top, that it was a little bit too early to tell, but we had spent a lot of time retesting this support here, and then this morning we gapped just underneath that support, right? So we talked about this 60-minute uptrend. I really like this 60-minute buy setup. We ended up retesting here, coming down and retesting towards the end of the day yesterday. And so yesterday we were talking when I was on the mic how this 60-minute uptrend is showing some weakness and that we've retested this major support here. I felt like a couple too many times for us to continue this 60-minute uptrend higher. So this morning we got this gap down right underneath this support area, right? And we still had this bottoming tail to deal with, but as soon as we gapped down, we immediately got sold and broke through support, right? So we were talking about this, and now today I didn't know exactly what was going to happen today, but I got a trend day signal, and so the likelihood of us selling off today was very high. And so I want to share this signal that I use, and then we can talk about, basically just break down how it works. It's really simple, and then we can talk about how I use this in my trading. Okay, so basically this is what it is. It's just a couple steps here. One, we get a convicted move in the market, right? So let's take the Qs, for example. We get a convicted move, a igniting move at the open, all right? So let me get my pencil here, right? So we got this igniting move at the open, and then we establish a trend on the 5-minute chart. So we base sideways here, broke down, continuing this trend lower. Okay? So we get an igniting move and then establish a trend on the 2 and 5-minute charts, which is what we did right here. So igniting move, establish a trend lower. Okay, so a lot of times we will come into 10:30 reversal time, which you can see right here. Note the volume spike and also the extended move lower here, right? Okay, so this is when I was on the mic here, and what I said was if we make new lows, then I'll have a trend day signal, okay? So we get an igniting move, establish a trend, and then continue after 10:30. That's basically the trend day signal. All right, and we can even look back over the last couple of days, because there were a couple days that the trend day signal followed through very nicely as well. So we get an igniting move, establish a trend, come into 10:30, get a reaction at 10:30, and then continue lower. Or if the market is an uptrend, which we'll look at an example, we get an igniting move higher, establish a 5-minute trend, and then continue higher after 10:30. So 10:30 is a reversal time that we use in the Black Room, and a pretty significant one as far as trend change. But if the trend does not change and continues lower, then that's a significant signal that we're going to get continued selling, which we got all of this continued selling here, okay? So that's basically the signal. We got this reaction at 10:30. I was on the mic. I was like, we're spending too much time basing at the lows here. We're not really pulling back. So it looks like we're going to continue lower. And the truth is, just the nature of this selling, the larger time frames, gapping underneath the base on the 60-minute chart, all of that kind of led to me feeling and kind of sensing that the trend was going, that we're going to get a trend day lower today, but it was confirmed once I got the signal. So right here, once we made new lows here. Okay, so what I do after that is I manage the trend by 5-minute significant pivots, which we ended up breaking this pivot here. Okay, So this is enough for me to go neutral on the market. Now, it's not enough for me to get all out bullish here on the market, but what this does tell me is that this 5-minute trend has broken here, and so I need to wait to see if we make new lows and continue lower, or if we just go sideways. And I would kind of anticipate, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I would anticipate that we get some sideways price action here. We may continue higher, or we may continue lower, but I'll have to wait and see which direction we pick. But in the meantime, after we broke this significant pivot, I'm neutral here as far as the bias, whether or not we're going to continue. Okay, so I do think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the last hour of the day. I have to, at 3, I got to go back on the mic, so I'll be moderating and we'll be able to see what happens with the market. But this was the trend day signal. We made a low at 10:30 after a convicted move, which continued the trend. New low after 10:30. Then we managed 5-minute significant pivots here. Okay, so there's a couple ways that you can look at this. Well, actually, let's go back. We'll look. There was one to the long side here. Here's an example where we got this gap up, and we made a 10:30 high here, right? Whatever the high is before 10:30, right? It doesn't have to be exactly at 10:30. This one was pretty close, but we were watching this buy setup here to see if we made new highs here, because I would have gotten a trend day signal, and it didn't end up following through there. I know the day on here's one where we made a new high here after 10:30, and we did continue to trend a little bit, but we ended up rolling over in the end of the day. Okay, here's one where we had FOMC here. Right, made a new high, and then we continued this 5-minute trend all the way until we ended up breaking it towards the end of the day here, okay? But we made a new high here, and then the 5-minute significant pivots ended up holding. So there's a couple things that you can do. One, you can play 5-minute buy setups in the market. And here's another example. I was actually on the mic when this one triggered as well, right? So we got a convicted move here, established this uptrend, broke higher here over 10:30, and then we trended higher the rest of the day here, okay? So 5-minute buy setups are playable, but what I don't play the market too often, but what I will look for is, one, if I have a short position and I get a trend day signal lower here, if I have a short position, then I will try to stick with that short position as long as I can, because the market is going to trend lower. So until the market breaks here, I would stick with a short position if we have a trend day on the market lower. Number 2, I will stay away on a downtrend day like today in the market. I will stay away from long setups almost entirely. If I find something that is clearly on its own page, that is really just completely ignoring the market and is clearly on its own page and is a professional gap up, I may play that, but almost entirely I will stay away from long positions. Now, I do think now that we got a neutral setup in the Qs here, I do think that if we go sideways and we transition on the 5-minute, right, so we get some sideways price action, we transition on the 5-minute, this isn't good enough, me playing long over the base, stop under the base, this isn't good enough for me to play the market long, but now that the trend is transitioning, I can look to play a long. But during this downtrend in the market, I don't play anything long, personally. I don't play anything long. Most of the long setups that we saw today really didn't follow through. We had some pretty good gap ups today. HPQ was an okay gap up. STZ was an okay gap up today. Ended up getting sold right at the open. What else was I looking at today? I deleted my list. Let me just look at my gaps list here. Oh, BKS. BKS was a gap up, ended up getting sold all day. CLDR was a pretty good gap up today, which ended up getting sold. Here's the CLDR, right, which ended up getting sold. So a lot of these didn't get sold as much as the Qs did, but in general, I'll stay away from longs. Okay, almost entirely. So that's pretty much how I'll use this trend day signal. I'll get a bias on the Qs, can play the Qs themselves, but I'll get a bias on the Qs, and I'll look for more of market-related shorts when we get a pullback like this in the market, and look for other short setups on individual stocks, and look for to couple that with timing with the market. And I'll also, if I'm in a short position from the open or even at 10:30, 11:15 reversal time, I'll look to stay with that short position as long as the Qs is continuing to trend. So let's just go over this one more time here before I jump off here, because I only have a couple minutes before I have to start moderating. Trend day signal on the market. One, Sammy actually mentioned this when we broke down here, that he had a very strong feeling that it looks like it's going to be a trend day. I felt the exact same way. I got the confirmation once we made 10:30 lows. So let's go over this. We get a igniting move at the open. We establish a downtrend here. And then we made new lows after the 10:30 low. So we traded sideways for a little bit, and then we broke down. So I got the trend day signal. This really pretty nice downtrend ensued, and then I'll manage this signal based by 5-minute significant pivots, which once we broke here, we broke the 5-minute downtrend. Okay, and then it's enough for me to go neutral, and then I can look to play long if the Qs start to transition. All right. The benefits of this, one is market bias is incredibly important to me, because I want to play stocks that are like, I want to look for shorts if the market is a trend day lower, look for setups as the market pulls back in individual stocks. So good timing with the market, and also it tells me to stay away from all of those long setups that we were talking about, because there's typically very little follow through to the long side. Same thing if we get a trend day higher, like we did in the Qs when we bottomed on that daily buy setup. Let me just go back here to this day. Right? Same thing, once we broke out here, I stayed away from all the shorts as we continued to trend higher the rest of the day. Right? So I stayed away from shorts and just focused on long patterns. And when we get these pullbacks here, get this pullback here, I look for longs on individual stocks that have good timing with the market. Okay? So, wanted to mention this. What I use for a trend day signal. Hopefully this kind of clears this up, because I do mention this quite a bit, because I'm moderating from 10:15 to 11, and so I'm always watching to see if we have a convicted move in the Qs, and if we have a trend day signal. We had a day like yesterday where there was no move of conviction here, right? And there was no continuation after 10:30 in either direction, and we just had sideways price action, right? So I just wanted to mention this. Hopefully this is helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions. But I didn't know what was going to happen in the market, but once we got this trend day signal, that was strong confirmation that we were going to trend lower. And we were able to take advantage of that today with the Qs. All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys soon.